Let's take a couple of moments and we'll walk through the initial and the system setup on Pioneer's DEH-X4800BT. So from any source, the first thing I want to do is turn the head unit off. Right now we're on the AM/FM radio source. So I'm going to press and hold the source button here for a couple of seconds. Now the system is switched off, but I still have the clock on the screen, so that's okay. We'll press in on the volume control, and I have two settings to work with here. I have the system setting and I have the initial setting. Let's start off with the initial settings. We'll press enter there. The first thing we see here is the speaker output and the pre-out mode. So speaker and pre-out mode. We'll press enter here. And this tells us that the rear speakers are set to full range output and the rear RCA is set to subwoofer output. If I roll over with the volume, we have the rear speaker set to subwoofer output and the rear RCA set to subwoofer output. Roll over one more time. Here I have the rear speakers set to full range output and the rear RCA set to full range output. If I want to have a subwoofer output in my car controllable by the head unit, we want to make sure that we roll over so we have a subwoofer setting on the rear RCA output. Once you're done making those settings, you can press the go back button and we'll roll over to the next setting, which is our software update. Particularly for the Bluetooth settings on the head unit, there may be software updates that come available through pioneerelectronics.com. You could download those software updates onto a USB thumb drive and insert the thumb drive right here to do the software update. We'll roll over to the next setting, which is the system reset. System reset will take the system back to the factory presets. To operate the system reset, just press enter and confirm yes. We'll go back and roll over to the next setting, which is back around to our speaker and pre-out mode. Now I'm going to go back one more, and from the initial settings we're going to go over to the system settings. We'll press enter there. First thing we see here is auxiliary input is turned on. Here's the auxiliary input. If you use the auxiliary input on a regular basis, you want to keep this switched on so that auxiliary shows up in your source list when you press the source button. If you don't use auxiliary on a regular basis, you can switch the auxiliary input off, and then it won't show up in your source list. But I like to use that, so we're going to definitely keep that turned on. Let's see, there we go. Auxiliary is turned on. We'll roll over to the next setting, which is Bluetooth audio on. Just like auxiliary, if you use Bluetooth audio on a regular basis, streaming audio, you're going to want to keep that turned on. If you don't like it, you can switch it off, and that will remove it from the source list, but I use Bluetooth audio all the time, so we'll keep that switched on. Roll over to the next setting, which is Bluetooth memory clear. Occasionally, you may have a number of different devices connected to your DEH-X4800BT, and you would just want to clear all of that stuff out and start over. This is where you can do that, and you can clear all of the memory of the 4800. We'll go back, roll over to the next setting, which is the Bluetooth version. If you ever need to check the Bluetooth version to see if an update needs to happen, this is where you can check that Bluetooth version. We'll go back, roll over to the next setting. App connection settings. This is how we will connect cell phones, iPhones, or Android phones to the head unit and be able to operate them. Let's press enter there. We have two different ways to make this work. We have wired connection we would use for an iPhone and a Bluetooth connection that we would use for an Android phone. You can choose the one of those that works best for you, and we will go back. We'll roll over to the next setting, which is Android wired connections. If you choose a wired connection for your Android phone, you're going to want to go in here, press enter, and we have two settings to choose from. We have the memory setting and the app control setting. First thing is memory. If you're going to choose to play back music stored on your Android phone, you're going to want the memory setting. This will allow you to plug in through USB and play back music stored on your device. If you want, you can play it back also through the Pioneer Arc app, the advanced remote control app. If you choose that setting, you're going to want the app control setting. So we'll go back and roll over to the next setting, which is prompt the app to automatically start. This means that if you have an Android phone connected through a wired connection, when you plug in that wired connection, it can automatically start the Arc app and help you play a track. If you don't want that to work that way, you can switch it off if you want. Let's roll over to the next setting, which is USB auto on. When I plug in a phone or a USB thumb drive to the USB port right here, the system can automatically switch to that source and begin to play a track. If you don't want that to happen, you just want to plug in your phone and maybe charge your phone but not switch to that source, you can switch USB auto off. I like to keep USB auto on. You can always switch to the USB source if you want to, but it doesn't have to automatically switch to that source. Okay, let's roll over to the next setting, which is our clock set. Here we can set the clock, and we can adjust the hours and the minutes. For more information on that, check out the clock setting video. And then we'll roll over to the next setting, which is the clock format, 12 or 24 hour. I like to have a 12-hour format on my clock. And we can roll over to the next setting, which is back around to our auxiliary input. At any time, you can exit this menu or any menu by pressing the band button to escape.